Resilience plus Rise, the podcast where we transform adversities into triumph and illuminate the extraordinary potential within all of us. When I say the word extraordinary, people are kind of skeptical. But whom am I talking to? I'm talking to just ordinary people, but they have done something extra, and we call them as extraordinary. I'm your host, Thomas Scaria. I'm a resilience coach. I'm an ultra marathoner and a firm believer in your next most powerful chapter. This podcast is a companion to my upcoming book, Resilience plus Rise 26.2 Transformative Miles to Unleash the Marathon of Your Life Mindset. Coming early 2025, April 2025. Here, we amplify the stories of hope, perseverance, success to inspire your journey. Today, I'm honored to welcome Rachael Garnett, a leading expert, listen to this carefully, in personal growth and self discovery. She considers herself as an AI whisperer, a LinkedIn cat lady. She has been a three international best-selling co-author. I've met Rachel, of course. She's an incredible, incurable optimist. Rachel had a remarkable journey of her own, overcoming her own challenges, finding her voice as a coach and author. Of course, she's passionate about helping others to unlock their potential and live a fulfilling life. Before I can go on and on, Rachel, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. You're the most fabulous person. I'm so grateful that I met you. And I just want to say this, and I think I said this to you before. It is our meeting and the kismet and just like the soul connection is one of the wonderful things about LinkedIn. And I like to say that I have a yes spirit. I'm not closed off to a lot of things. So when we, started messaging, I was like, of course I want to meet you. There's and it's just been so wonderful and I'm really grateful. So I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for you being happy, but I would say this is where you're wrong because the spotlight is not on me, it's on you.
Oh, that's so hard. Okay.
Okay, so tell me your journey, Rachel. Is that who you are at this point of time? And I believe you have gone through different trajectories, different pivots. And the other day, you were talking about the purpose of making AI a path that people would be able to grow on. But how, what, where, take us across the journey.
Um, okay, where do you want me to start?
We can start actually, maybe in fact, one of those time wherein the photograph I'd seen about you on Google, wherein you were a different,
My
having a different
hair.
aura,
Okay.
yeah, the different aura, etc. Yep.
Okay. So everybody who knows me knows this. I wear wigs. This is actually a topper because about 20 years ago, I started to lose my hair.
Okay.
And so the old picture on Google, I need to change, but I actually loved my hair like that. I loved that. At that point in time, I owned a very successful estate sales business. We were, one of the top 25 businesses in estate sales companies in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is very competitive. And I just really wanted to stand out in terms of the way that I looked. So I bleached my hair blonde and I had that adorable little pixie cut. And it was just so much fun. And so I have kind of transformed. My hair is naturally dark. It's naturally very curly. If I still had hair, this is what I tell people what it would look like. I don't know if it would be this fabulous, but that is how that physical transformation happened.
Okay. Move the page to a professional or a personal transformation that has been taking place and where you are at this point of time. So you had a business, but then slowly moved into the different facets of life.
Yep. So I I absolutely loved my estate sales business. I had the same staff for several years. I didn't have turnover. I had just incredible relationships with my staff and my clients and, customers. Would have lines around, the block of people waiting to get into our sales. We just had just such an incredible following. But late 2015, I got very sick.
Hmm.
And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't turn my neck. And really, I was in bed probably for 6 to 8 months, in and out of the emergency room. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. And it turned out that I had Lyme disease. And it took my father, who was a retired surgeon living in California, to diagnose me. And so the road of recovery from the Lyme disease, once it became chronic, was long. And I was so sick, and I didn't know how to sell my business. I didn't need to let my staff go because they needed to work. And when I started feeling better, um, my kids did not want me to do estate sales any longer. They had really felt like that's what made me sick. I was gone on weekends and whatnot. So I had to just sort of step back and figure out, what is it that I want to do again. And, one of the things that I started doing, that I still do as, I guess a paid hobby, is doing the estate sales, or all of these fabulous pieces of furniture, but maybe the upholstery was old or damaged. And I thought, wouldn't it just be so great if I could make these pieces beautiful again and sell them? So when I started feeling better, I enrolled in a commercial sewing class at one of our local community colleges, that has the only upholstery school in the state of Texas. And this was, I think, 2017, 2018. And from there, I started doing furniture reupholstery. And from knowing that I did estate sales, I loved things that are old. I love things that are used. I love recycling things. Growing up, I did yard sales, and at that point there were antique shops that had vintage clothing, and that was really kind of what I did. So the estate sales was really a natural thing for me to do, and then also rehabbing this old furniture and making it beautiful again. So I started doing that. I realized that I really did not want to do upholstery as a job, or like own a business. And I had worked in fundraising. Uh, I've had so many jobs, Thomas. Oh my gosh. I have a master's degree in art education. I've got a BFA in art history. And so I worked as an art teacher. I taught pre-K 4 through 8th grade art for several years. And it was at a little Catholic school. And at that school, even though I was teaching all of those grades, they did not consider my position to be full-time. So I was like, I need a full-time job. I need insurance. And so they said, well, we need a development director. I had never heard of a development director. I had never done any kind of fundraising. They had never had a development director. So I, was teaching art, which I love. And then with these trying to figure out how to raise money for this like fabulous little 100-year-old school. And I never thought that I would do that again, the development.
Okay.
But when I started to recover from being sick and did not want to do upholstery, have an upholstery business, there was a friend of mine who was a chief development officer for the Metropolitan YMCA here in Fort Worth, and she needed a development associate, and I needed a job. And so that's how I got into nonprofit work.
Okay.
And the nonprofit work, which has been like, on and off for over a decade. So I think I've probably got a whole decade, maybe 10 or 11 years in nonprofit fundraising. It's a nonprofit work is difficult, and it can sometimes be, not that it's thankless, but you're wearing so many hats, or at least the nonprofits that I worked at were very understaffed. And so when AI came out, ChatGPT in 2022, I really started to utilize it for helping me to do research to write grants and helping me to write boilerplates. So I tried to write between 35 and 40 grants a year on top of all of my fundraising, things that I was doing. But before then, when Midjourney came out, which is like you make AI art, a friend of mine who actually was one of my estate sales customers is also an artist, and he was posting these bizarre, fabulous pictures on Facebook. Just like, Jason, what are you doing? And so I was able to, get into that even before they had a beta, just that very first version of Midjourney. Offline, I will send you some of the pictures that I created back then, 3 years ago. But I fell in love with AI, creating AI art, and being very interested in how to put words together to make the images, because there is an art to that. There's a process. And so over the years, I have developed this very specific style of these cats. And the cats started, when I first started doing AI art, I was listening to an artist, and he said, as you're learning, he said, just pick one subject and do absolutely everything that you can with that. And, I'm the LinkedIn cat lady. I love cats. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do cats. And I have created just the most incredible cat images from wood and glass and sand, and I just did whatever I could with these cats, and then over time have really created my own style through that I love. And they're all me. They're all like facets of my personality.
So, guys, I will be putting out Rachel's link in this podcast. So, do go and have a look on to some of the postings that she has done. I say it is that it's a beautiful journey. It's a fun. I don't know. It's more of a fun journey. Just looking at the artwork which has been done, it is just it takes you in a different space. But before we can go more into AI aspect of it, there was another element also that you have co-authored 3 books.
Yes.
How did that happen?
I don't know. It's, again, it's just the universe just puts things out there. And there's a gal named Jo Davis who she's an intuitive. And I had worked with her a few years ago on some meditation techniques and kind of, finding my light, finding myself. And she called me and she said, hey, I've been in this book series. It's the Creative Life book. Our next book that's coming out is called Radical Freedom. I would love for you to be a part of this. And I think you really have a lot to say. And so that was my first experience co-authoring a book. And I loved it so much. And then a gal from, that is from Austin put a message to one of my networking groups, and he said, hey, someone's looking for co-authors for a book. And the book was about LinkedIn and those LinkedIn relationships. And so I said, yes, I want to do that because I had such a great experience with the first one. And so this was a trilogy about, different LinkedIn experiences. And my book was Why I Came and Why I Stay. And so I think we had either 7 or 11 authors in each book. And then I loved working with Nick so much. She's the gifted bipolar writer, and she was such a wonderful person to work with that when she had an author call for her next book, which is the second in a series called I Am Your Legacy, I just jumped on because I really enjoyed working with her. And she has just created such an incredible community of really supportive co-authors. It's really, and I think I even said on LinkedIn that you and Nick need to know each other because it's just a group of just beautiful coaches and people really wanting to help others reach their highest level. And in such like a very beautiful, selfless, really creative way. Everybody's doing things so differently and creatively. And so I really want to do some more work with Nick in her books because I just had such a great experience doing that.
What's wonderful is that none of these books, as I see it, has a common thread, whether it is radical freedom, whether it's about the relationships on LinkedIn and I'm Your Legacy. Three different trajectory, three different pivots. And so when you look into these particular books, has there been any experiences that pivoted the way you had been walking on the path and suddenly something felt different? Like when I look into radical freedom, wow, that seems to be a mind bender about,
Yeah.
okay, or LinkedIn, which is currently the platform of millions and billions of people.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, then I'm Your Legacy. Uh, it gets me to Joe Dispenza type of.
Love Joe Dispenza.
So
Dr.
it
Joe.
so it gets into different areas. So did you come across any point of time in your life when you were co-authoring, there was something which stirred and made, using the word from your book, radical difference in your own life?
I think it was not the Radical Freedom book. And I think it's because that was the first book that I had co-authored. And I just, you have as a co-author, you have a limited number of words. And I really felt that I just had to, just tell my whole story. And then once I kind of got that out of my system and was able to really kind of focus on, LinkedIn, that story and those relationships on LinkedIn, and then the I Am Your Legacy book. Those two experiences for me, I think, were a lot more profound, and especially the legacy book because so in the legacy book, I wrote a letter to my sons about my mom. So creating a bridge. Now, the thing about my mom, she committed suicide at 58. She was a drug addict. She was an alcoholic. She was very bipolar. And so my relationship with her was, I don't want to say fraught, but at one time she would be incredibly frightening and abusive, or not talking to me for a couple weeks as a child, and then she would be so absolutely just wonderful. And so I think me writing to my sons about that kind of showed me some things about myself that maybe I knew but I hadn't realized. And I think they have not heard a lot about her. I have not shared a whole lot of my story with my mom, with my kids. And it, I don't know, I think it let me show her in a light, and my relationship with her and my relationship with them in a light that is, relationships are very complex and they can be broken, but they can also be really beautiful. And, I also view these relationships as going very much past this short life, this body, into, the universe, and how everlasting those relationships are, whether they're, past lives, upcoming lives, energy, that, it's just kind of this quantum entanglement that we have that is not bound by time. And I think in writing that book, it helped me to understand how and why I have so much forgiven her and love her and hold absolutely no resentment towards things that happened, which I think is one of, you talk about a lot of resilience. And I think those are some of the things in me that are resilient, that help me to be full of light, or those things, because I don't have that resentment holding me down. And I think the other thing that I realized is, probably because of those experiences, I can hold so many truths in my mind at one time. Um, situations are not just black and white. And I have just a really great ability to see so many different sides of a story and not have any judgment on any one. And I think because of that kind of childhood that I grew up with, that was so different, the love and then the abuse or the fear and the care or all those kind of things, maybe has helped me to hold different things in my mind that I maybe would not have.
Rachel, there are times wherein I am in loss of words, and today this was one of the moments because this is a different you that I've known. I was going to talk about your passion on AI, but if it's your permission, can we just dwell on this topic because this I know would resonate with a lot of people. If it's okay,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
for me, it is a power of one. Even if one person can listen to this conversation, and if there is, they can take away something.
Of course.
Thank you. So, as I've been, as I believe, is that life is not happening to you but for you, and because of what happened through you, the lessons that you've learned. And I've always mentioned to about the light that you are, and I think so. The light comes from our deepest of wounds, so says Rumi, because it's through the wounds that the light starts shining out. And it required your mother for you to realize a different way that you could have gone in either ways.
I could have.
You could have, but you chose to get more stronger, more resilient, and take the ownership of your life.
Yes.
Beautiful. When you're now looking at this point of time at how the life has been opening up, like, and then you said about the different professions that you've gone through, the different learnings that you've done, and the different hats that you've worn. Do you want to say something about how foundational growth in the sphere when you are with your mother has helped you to become the person you are at this point of time?
I need to I need to think about that.
Hmm?
And I'm going to give you an answer that is maybe not an answer to that question, but I think another part of my journey is that I'm a recovered drug addict. So, I grew up with my mom who was a drug addict. I've been sober for over 26 years. And I think at that point in time, I think I got sober. I was 28 years old and was really on the verge of death. I was overdosing, every couple months. And so, um, one of my friends who, thank goodness he's been sober now for about 11 years, was with me the last time that I overdosed, and he had to call the paramedics. I had turned purple. I had stopped breathing. My heart had stopped. And when the paramedics brought me out, they offered to like take me somewhere. They're like, "You need help," and I said, "No, I don't want to go." And I was on my knees because I couldn't stand up. And my thought was, I want to get high again. And then the next thought was, if you do, you're going to die. And this voice just told me that I didn't want to die, that I wanted to live. And it was really at that exact moment, I guess, kind of, you want to call God or the universe or however, you want to phrase that, universal being. At that moment that I asked for help is when my life just completely changed from the trajectory that I had been going on. And so I am one of the few people that I know that has been sober once. I have never relapsed. It was so profound. I did, just like so many people, I went to a treatment facility for 30 days. They said, "You're really messed up. You need to go someplace for 90 more days." And I did. And I did everything that, people told me to do. I went through, a program of 12 steps, which I am a huge advocate of, and spent years and years also helping other people, not me helping them, but guiding them through steps to take so that they could help themselves. That I've had the opportunity to help other people. And I think I'm kind of a slow at changing, slow at growing, late bloomer, or whatever that is. But that was the time I think that I really started to change. And it was also at that time when I went to my mom, I went to make amends with her, but I also told her, hey, I've gotten sober. I've got a bed for you somewhere. And, do you want to go? And she said, no, I don't. I'm not going to stop using drugs. I like the way they make me feel. And I understood that. And that's when really any of my resentment or judgment of her fell away, because we were so similar. How I was able to break that trajectory, I honestly, Thomas, I don't know. I don't know what that thought was, but it did create a profound change. Now, what I will say is, you talk about kind of all these things that I've done in this work that I've been doing on myself in the past few years. What I've realized is that all of those different things that I have done, starting, becoming decent at something, and stopping, has really been a form of self-sabotage. I have not let myself really go into something with a great amount of completion. Now, with the estate sales business, had I not gotten sick, yes, I probably would have. That was really, to me, kind of a forever thing. But when I did get sick, I felt so guilty about it, and it was almost as though I was punishing myself. So I just have sort of done this stop, start, and then I think realizing that is huge for me, but also just giving myself grace, because if I don't give myself grace, and everyone else grace, it's hard to move on. So it's, did I answer your question?
It answers a lot of in fact, these questions never came up, but then I am truly thankful for allowing yourself to open up. It, for me, it is huge. And thank you.
Of
Thank you
course.
on that. A question that comes up is that you went through this entire process of discovering, rediscovering, recreating, working on your own self. It did not stop when you were around 26 years old, but it's an what I've just heard is that it's been an ongoing process.
Ongoing, absolutely.
And you are, you are, I believe, at least as when I started my initial dialogue was, they are just ordinary people, but who have done extra. Rachel, you stand on that particular pedestal of being extraordinary. I don't know about others, but to me,
Yeah.
you are. Thank you for your presence.
Thank you.
A question I would ask over here is that, as I mentioned, this is the power of one. Even if one person is listening, and if they know somebody who's going through this struggles, I won't give an advice because even I do not listen to advice. But what are the suggestions that you would offer them?
I think, I think that, kind of in our daily lives, overcoming obstacles is not always overcoming something huge.
Hmm.
It can sometimes just be about getting through that kind of imperfect day and, continuing to go. Um, for me, I have to give myself permission to be imperfect. and to know that I need to say I'm sorry for some things. If in looking at the childhood abuse or, abandonment, I think just to tell people that those things are not you. They are situations or things that happen that, I really believe that there are pretty much everything that happens to me is in my control or I've thought it into being. But as a child, I didn't think any of those things into being or, but that those things are not you. Um, I think is really, really important to know. And just to
Sure.
keep showing up, waking up, showing up, giving yourself grace.
I think so. That's the most important thing because people they forget that we all believe providing the kindness to and the goodness and making the world more beautiful. But first and foremost, do you give yourself the grace, as you mentioned? Are you kind to your own self? Because again, it's a simple thing is that if you don't fill yourself with love, how can you give love to another person?
Mhm.
And it's not about selfishness.
There was a story that I wanted to tell you that I don't
Please.
know if it relates. Can I tell it to you? So when my last nonprofit job, I was raising money for the Fort Worth Public Library System, and we officed in the downtown Central Library. And in downtown Fort Worth, there are quite a few homeless people. And the wonderful thing about the libraries is a safe place for them to go. So, during the day, you've got, you know, 20 some odd, homeless men and women who are on their phones, they're reading the paper, they're reading books, but they're there and it's safe. And I have a heart for people who live differently than I am. Some people are homeless by choice, some are mentally ill, but I've found myself becoming friends with a few of these people. And one of them, his name was Bo, and he had lost his citizenship papers, had been stolen, his driver's license had been stolen. So many things happened to this gentleman, and he did not want to go into any of the shelters. I think he had been abused there. So he was just living and sleeping on the street. And as we started talking, and I would ask him about his day and, what he was interested in and all of those sorts of things, really becoming friends. And, the weather would be bad. I would try to give him a blanket. He wouldn't take it. He wouldn't take food from me. And finally, I just said, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "Will you give me a hug?" Well, of course I'll give you a hug. And I never it brings kind of tears to my eyes, not because I am this benevolent, whatever, but I thought there's so many people, and I think so many people that come from the kind of abuse that I come from who just don't feel seen, or they're, cast aside. And really just by giving this man a hug, um, he started to transform. And it was really incredible that, I would see him, we would talk, I would give him a hug. And, the last time I saw him, he had an apartment, he had a job. And I was just like, "I'm so proud of you that you did all of this stuff." And he said, "But you helped me." And I'm like, "I didn't do anything for you." But I do remember, a lot of times, like in morning meditation, I ask for like the universe to shine its light through me, not me shining light, but just this light. And I really felt like at that time with him that my spirit was just really willing to open up and shine that light on him so that his life could improve. And again, just nothing that I did, but treating him as a human or seeing him as a human and a person, and that, his likes and desires and interests and fears and all of those sorts of things that I think a lot of times we don't see in people, even if they're not homeless. It's just
They don't have,
regular
yeah,
people that we talk to. But just being able to see people and, you know, that everybody is important. Everyone is extraordinary in their own way.
that's Beautiful. And that's what we take it so lightly at times when the statement is said is that you cannot you cannot at times imagine the magnitude of a kind gesture.
Yes.
I s- I remember having a talk with David Woods was planning to commit suicide. He mentioned that policeman. He never came and gave any advice. He never told me to stop anything. He just said, "Let's talk. What's hurting you?" And he said that changed the trajectory. People just turning to one another. In my podcast, I always say is that we are angels with one wing. It's only when we hold another one that's when we can fly higher.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful.
And Rachel, what you did to Bo that day was nothing short of you being an angel because he had a wing, but he never knew how to fly. It's when you held him. You also elevated yourself as a human and he learned how to fly. He got back. He was, I think so, until then, he was existing, but you made him give a life.
Does you want to thrive, you want to do
Yeah.
much more than just exist. So I think part of that in terms of with people is just showing kindness to others is so huge to me. And I think that's a huge part of that recovery. And that doesn't mean being taken advantage of or whatever, but it's just a real kindness that just always comes back.
Yes, the
And and
law
and,
of
it, and it's
karma.
yeah, the law of karma, and it's not to get anything in return, but it does come back. Like it comes
Yes.
back here.
Just being mindful of the time.
Okay, yes.
Is there anything that you would like the listeners to, as we part through this particular journey, that you would like to say some stirring? It could be a word, it could be a statement, it could be a paragraph. But this is your time. If you there's something that you want to say to the audience.
Um, I think, because when I think of you, I can't wait for your book to come out, by the way. But when I think, I was thinking of just resilience and how resilience can be that process or be so many different things. It's like, so, as a child, just for me, just surviving was being resilient. And then when I got sober, that was a very different type of resilience. And then, kind of resilience today looks also very different for me. But I think that the resilience, I just think life takes so many different forms. And just to, um, I don't know, start each day with a yes, that this is going to be the most beautiful day. Like every day can be wonderful, even with all of the problems that might interpret that you have.
I would say yes. Start with a yes and start with the attitude of gratitude.
Attitude of gratitude. It's the highest vibration, isn't it?
Yeah, fair enough. So, Rachel, with this, I conclude our session. So, guys, as if you have if this podcast has stirred something within you, I honestly ask you to connect with Rachel. And we have seen that she is an incredible human. This journey, it was not only about a dialogue, a conversation, it was her insight into self discovery, self acceptance, and I think so, which was one of the most beautiful aspect was her power of vulnerability. For her to overcome self doubt, embrace her unique strength, and live a life of authenticity, her true self, stepping into the power, living a life of purpose and fulfillment. For this, Rachel, I'm absolutely thankful to you. Thank you so very much for your space and time. And
Oh, thank you. You're just such a dear soul and a dear friend. And thank you so much.